Picture this. You're 30 years old, sitting across from someone you love, and suddenly you're having the exact same fight your parents had when you were 7. Word for word, gesture for gesture. You swore you'd never be like them. Yet here you are. If that hit close to home, you're not alone. What I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see every relationship in your life. The person you become in love, friendship, and even at work. It was all decided before you could even tie your shoes. Today, we're diving deep into the invisible puppet strings from your childhood that are still pulling at your adult relationships. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why you attract certain people, why you repeat certain patterns, and most importantly, how to finally break free. Stick around, because what you learn in the next 20 minutes could save your relationships, your sanity, and maybe even your future. Let's start with a hard truth. Your brain at age 5 was like wet cement. Every interaction, every emotion, every moment of safety or fear was being permanently etched into your neural pathways. Think about your earliest memory with your parents or caregivers. Was it warm and secure? Or was there tension, unpredictability, maybe even fear? That moment, and thousands like it, became your relationship blueprint. Scientists call this your attachment style, and it's arguably the most powerful force shaping your adult connections. There are 4 main types, and I guarantee you'll recognize yourself in one of them. Secure attachment happens when your caregivers were consistent, responsive, and emotionally available. If this was you, congratulations. You probably have healthy relationships, communicate well, and trust comes naturally. But here's the thing. Only about 60% of people have secure attachment. The rest of us, we're walking around with invisible wounds that dictate everything. Anxious attachment develops when love felt conditional or inconsistent. Maybe your parents were loving one day, distant the next. Sound familiar? If so, you probably crave closeness but fear abandonment. You might be the person who checks their partner's phone, needs constant reassurance, or panics when someone doesn't text back immediately. Avoidant attachment is the opposite extreme. If emotions were dismissed, minimized, or if you learned that relying on others led to disappointment, you built walls. You might be fiercely independent, struggle with vulnerability, or find yourself pulling away just when relationships get deep. And then there's disorganized attachment, the most complex. This happens when caregivers were both the source of comfort and fear. If you experience trauma, addiction in the home, or extreme inconsistency, you might find yourself caught between desperately wanting connection and being terrified of it. Here's what's mind-blowing. These patterns aren't just theories. Brain scans show that people with different attachment styles literally have different neural activity when they think about relationships. Your childhood didn't just influence your personality. It rewired your brain. Now let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable. You're probably dating your parents. I don't mean literally. Stay with me here. But there's a psychological phenomenon where we unconsciously seek out partners who mirror the emotional dynamics we experienced as children. It's called repetition compulsion. And it explains why people often find themselves in relationships that feel strangely familiar, even when they're toxic. Think about it. If your father was emotionally unavailable, you might find yourself attracted to partners who are hard to pin down. If your mother was controlling, you might unconsciously choose partners who try to manage every aspect of your life. Your brain is literally seeking out what feels normal, even if normal was painful. I once knew someone who had 3 serious relationships. In every single one, her partner would start out attentive and loving, then gradually become distant and critical. She couldn't understand why she kept attracting the same type of person. The breakthrough came when she realized her father had followed this exact pattern, showering her with attention when she was good, then withdrawing love when she didn't meet his expectations. Her subconscious was seeking that familiar push-pull dynamic because it felt like love to her nervous system. This is why you can't just think your way out of relationship patterns. Your body, your nervous system, your unconscious mind, they're all working from a script written in childhood. But here's the empowering part. Once you understand your script, you can rewrite it. Every family has roles, spoken and unspoken. Maybe you were the peacekeeper, always trying to stop fights. Maybe you were the rebel, acting out to get attention. Or perhaps you were the invisible child, learning that your needs didn't matter. These roles follow us into adult relationships. The peacekeeper becomes a person who sacrifices their own needs to avoid conflict. The rebel might sabotage good relationships because chaos feels more familiar than peace. The invisible child might struggle to speak up for themselves or believe they deserve love. What role did you play in your family? And more importantly, are you still playing it? Let's dive into something practical. How you learn to communicate or not communicate. Feelings. Every family has rules about emotions, though they're rarely spoken out loud. In some families, anger is explosive and terrifying. In others, it's completely forbidden. Some families talk through everything. Others sweep problems under the rug until a pile gets so big you can't walk around it anymore. If your family dealt with conflict through silence, withdrawal, or passive aggression, you might find yourself shutting down during arguments with your partner. Your nervous system learned that direct confrontation was dangerous, so it goes into freeze mode. On the flip side, if your household was full of yelling, dramatic outbursts, or intense emotional scenes, you might have learned that volume equals validity. You might find yourself escalating conflicts because quiet discussions feel powerless to your system. Perhaps most damaging is a family where emotions were simply ignored or minimized. Stop crying. You're being too sensitive. That's not worth getting upset about. If this was your experience, you might struggle to even identify what you're feeling, let alone express it to a partner. Here's a powerful exercise. Think about the last serious disagreement you had with someone you care about. How did you handle it? Did you explode, shut down, or try to fix everything immediately? Now think about how conflict was handled in your childhood home. See the connection? Many of us never learned the vocabulary for healthy emotional expression. We know fine, good, bad, and angry. But what about vulnerable, overwhelmed, disappointed, or cherished? If your parents never modeled how to say, "I feel hurt when you interrupt me," or "I need some time to process this before we continue talking," how would you know to do that in your relationships? This is why so many adults feel like they're fumbling in the dark when it comes to emotional intimacy. We're trying to speak a language we were never taught. Trust might be the most crucial element in any relationship, and your ability to trust, or your inability to do so, was largely formed before you were 10 years old. Trust isn't just about whether someone will cheat on you or lie to you. It's about whether you believe, deep in your bones, that people will be there for you when you need them, that they'll see the real you and not run away. That love won't be taken away as punishment. If your early caregivers were unreliable, making promises they didn't keep, being emotionally available one day and absent the next, or if there was betrayal, addiction, or abuse, your nervous system learned that people are fundamentally untrustworthy. This creates what psychologists call hypervigilance. You're constantly scanning for signs of rejection, betrayal, or abandonment. You might test your partner's loyalty in destructive ways, push them away before they can hurt you, or sabotage good relationships because waiting for the other shoe to drop feels unbearable. Conversely, some people develop what looks like trust, but is actually something else entirely. If you learn that love was conditional on being good, you might trust too quickly, ignore red flags, or give people the benefit of the doubt even when their actions clearly show their character. This isn't real trust. It's desperation dressed up as optimism. Here's something most people miss. Your ability to trust others is directly connected to your ability to trust yourself. If you grew up in an environment where your perceptions were constantly questioned, your feelings were dismissed, or you were told you were too sensitive, or imagining things, you learn not to trust your own instincts. How can you have healthy boundaries with others if you don't trust your own inner voice telling you something feels wrong? The good news is that trust can be rebuilt, but it happens slowly and through consistent, small actions. It's not about finding the perfect person who will never disappoint you. It's about learning to trust your own ability to handle disappointment, to communicate your needs, and to make good decisions about who deserves access to your heart. Let's talk about something that affects every single relationship you'll ever have. How you learn to value yourself. Your sense of self-worth wasn't formed by looking in the mirror and deciding you were valuable. It was formed by how others treated you, spoke to you, and responded to your needs during your most vulnerable years. Many of us learned that love was something we had to earn. Maybe you got attention and affection when you achieved something, good grades, winning a game, being perfect. But when you struggled, failed, or just needed comfort, the warmth disappeared. This creates adults who believe they must constantly prove their worth in relationships. You might be the person who gives endlessly, never asks for anything, or believes that if you just do enough love enough or sacrifice enough, you'll finally be worthy of someone's complete devotion. If you grew up with constant criticism, perfectionist standards, or comparisons to others, you likely develop a harsh inner critic that never stops talking. This voice follows you into every relationship, whispering that you're not good enough, attractive enough, successful enough, or lovable enough. Here's the cruel irony. The worse you feel about yourself, the more likely you are to accept treatment that confirms those feelings. It's like your subconscious is saying, "See, I told you that you weren't worth treating well." Physical or emotional abandonment in childhood creates a particular kind of self-worth injury. Whether it was a parent who left, was emotionally unavailable, or made you feel like a burden, the child's brain makes a logical conclusion. I must not be worth staying for. This wound shows up in adult relationships as either desperate clinging, trying to prevent anyone from ever leaving again, or preemptive abandonment, where you leave first to avoid being left. Some children cope with unstable or critical environments by becoming perfect. If you would just be good enough, smart enough, helpful enough, maybe you'll finally be safe and loved. The problem is perfectionism is a moving target. No matter how much you achieve or how hard you try, it never feels like enough. In relationships, this might show up as constantly trying to anticipate and meet your partner's every need while neglecting your own. Here's what you need to understand. Your worth isn't something you earn through performance. It's not something that can be taken away by someone else's opinion or treatment of you. It's inherent, unchangeable, and exists at the moment you took your first breath. The relationships that will heal you are the ones where you can be imperfect, needy, grumpy, or struggling, and still be met with love and acceptance. But first, you have to believe you deserve that kind of love. Boundaries might be the most misunderstood concept in relationships, and how you learn about them or didn't in childhood determines how you navigate them as an adult. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're not rules you impose on others. Boundaries are your own internal guidelines about what you will and won't accept, what feels safe and unsafe, and how you'll respond when those lines are crossed. If you grew up in a family where everyone's emotions, problems, and needs were tangled together, you might struggle with what psychologists call differentiation. You might feel responsible for everyone's feelings, have trouble saying no, or feel guilty when you prioritize your own needs. In romantic relationships, this shows up as losing yourself in your partner's world, feeling anxious when they're upset even if it has nothing to do with you, or being unable to maintain your own interests and friendships. On the opposite extreme, if your family was emotionally distant, critical, or vulnerability led to pain, you might have learned to protect yourself through rigid boundaries. You keep people at arm's length, share very little about yourself, or maintain complete independence even in close relationships. While this protects you from being hurt, it also prevents genuine intimacy. People can't love what they can't see, and they can't see what you won't show them. If you took care of a parent's emotional or practical needs as a child, maybe they confided in you about adult problems, relied on you to manage their emotions, or you had to be the responsible one. You learn that your value comes from what you can do for others. This creates adults who have trouble receiving care, feel uncomfortable when others are struggling and they can't fix it, and often end up in relationships where they're giving far more than they're receiving. Healthy boundaries sound like, "I love you, and I won't continue this conversation if you're going to yell at me. I care about your problems, and I'm not available to talk about them after 10 p.m. I want to spend time with you, and I also need time alone to recharge." Notice how these statements don't try to control the other person's behavior. They simply state what you'll do in response to that behavior. Now, for the most important part, how do you break free from patterns that no longer serve you? First, understand that awareness is the beginning, not the end. Simply knowing why you do something doesn't automatically change it. Your nervous system needs new experiences to create new neural pathways. You can't go back and change your childhood, but you can give yourself what you needed then. This might mean learning to comfort yourself when you're upset, celebrating your achievements, or speaking to yourself with the kindness you wish for as a child. Start noticing your inner dialogue. Would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? If not, it's time to develop a more compassionate internal voice. Instead of being pulled by unconscious patterns, start making conscious choices about who you let into your life. Ask yourself, does this person make me feel safe to be myself? Do they respect my boundaries? Can they handle conflict without attacking or withdrawing? Sometimes this means ending relationships that felt familiar but weren't healthy. Sometimes it means staying in relationships that feel scary because they're actually secure. Your nervous system just isn't used to safety yet. There's no shame in getting help from a therapist, especially one trained in attachment theory or trauma-informed care. Some wounds are too deep to heal alone, and professional support can accelerate your growth tremendously. Change is slow, nonlinear, and often uncomfortable. You might find yourself falling back into old patterns, especially during stress. This isn't failure, it's normal. Healing happens in spirals, not straight lines. The goal isn't to become perfect in relationships. It's to become conscious, to make choices from awareness rather than reactivity, and to slowly build a capacity for the kind of love you truly deserve. Your childhood shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. Every day, you have the opportunity to make different choices, to respond rather than react, and to build the relationships you've always wanted. The patterns we talk about today might feel overwhelming, but remember, you're not broken. You're not damaged goods. You're a human being who adapted to survive your early environment, and now you get to consciously choose what serves your adult life. If this video resonated with you, I want to hear about it in the comments. What pattern did you recognize in yourself? What's one small step you're going to take this week to break an old cycle? And if you found this valuable, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're going deep on psychology, relationships, and personal growth every week. Remember, the best relationship you'll ever have starts with the one you have with yourself. You're worth the work it takes to heal. You're worth healthy love. And you're definitely worth breaking the cycles that no longer serve you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.